Hey there Trekkies, my name is Michael aka the TrekLad and welcome back to my channel. We're going back in time today because I have just rewatched Star Trek The Next Generation's very first episode, Encounter at Farpoint, and yes, of course, I have some thoughts about it. You may have seen me cover Encounter at Farpoint before on a number of occasions. That is very true. However, I am really enjoying the current format of my output and I wanted to redo it. So that's what we're doing. These brain fart dump videos are, they seem to be the best way for me to do that. So that's what we're doing, and hopefully you enjoy it. If you're new to the channel, and if you haven't done so already, like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, coming super soon, really soon, warp speed soon. Set 100 years after Kirk and the original Enterprise, the brand spanking new Galaxy-class Enterprise D and her crew must contend with the omnipotent being Q, as well as a mysterious new station which may or may not be crucial to the future of the whole human race. As per usual, I'm going to start by covering the aspects of the episode that I liked first, and then we'll get into the things that I didn't like. It's quite a tall order to introduce us to a brand new era, a brand new time, brand new universe, because everything's fundamentally changed since Kirk. Brand new crew, a brand new ship, a brand new state of things. I think Encounter handled it fairly admirably. Everybody gets at least one moment, they get at least one thing to do in this 90-minute episode, and I think the balance was there. There is some weird stuff going on, but for the most part, I like the fact that by the end of this first outing, we were fairly comfortable in where we were, the setting, the ship, and the crew. I like the fact that the show took chances and decided to kind of push out and introduce us to a whole load of new things and kind of trusted the audience not to be overwhelmed. The show took chances and did some brand new things, you know, the addition of Q and not leaning on stuff that we were already overly familiar with. So I really like the fact that it took its, it was brave. It was brave in its execution. The biggest thing with Encounter at Farpoint for me, it's the thing that I always remember, is just how good it looks. Everything that we see with the Enterprise, the visual effects sequences that we see there, Q with the ball in space, the fence, Farpoint as well, the wonderful miniature model. It all looks good. It all looks good. Towards the end of the episode, you get the massive, the UFO, which turns into the jellyfish, and it all still looks really good. Yeah. It's held up well. The Enterprise D is an absolutely gorgeous ship, and I absolutely loved it from the moment I first watched this episode as a young kid, and I think I love it even more so now. A radical departure from a design aesthetic from the ships that we'd seen, but I think it just helped kind of push this notion that we were further along in the future than we had ever been. John Delancey's Q was an awesome addition to the Star Trek franchise. Probably the most confident performance of all of the performers involved in the first episode. It's just like he kind of knew what the character was straight out the gate. There was no need to refine it. Smacked it out of the park. Of course, I have to talk about Patrick Stewart's first performance as the new captain, Jean-Luc Picard. I have to mention it because I'm English as well, and I'm biased. We're biased. We look out for each other. Very different to the captains, the archetypal captains that we're used to. Very, very different to Captain Kirk. Far more diplomatic and less action-oriented. In terms of the presence of the captain, very, very different presence, and it worked. It worked for the most part. Now, while we were introduced to a whole new cast and crew, there were some interesting characters that really stood out for me. The most obvious being Worf, a Klingon in a Starfleet uniform and on the bridge. Now, that's awesome, and didn't really get brought up as, you know, what is a Klingon doing on the bridge, because it's seen as the new normal. Looking forward to learning more about that character going forward. I have seen this show, but I'm just pretending like it's the first time I've watched them, if you haven't gathered already. Tasha Yar as the ship's head of security, a female in charge of security on the ship. Geordie LaForge, a blind man who pilots the ship. Thumbs up. It's just awesome to see these kind of radical ideas just being completely accepted in the future. big thumbs up. Now to talk about the aspects of the episode that I didn't like so much, and the thing that stands out for me, the thing that's always stood out with Encounter at Farpoint is its really strange kind of presentation and flow. Now, if you're familiar with the backstage stories of the concept and creation, all the trouble that they had bringing Star Trek The Next Generation to the small screen, I highly recommend checking out Chaos on the Bridge if you haven't done so already. It's a real eye-opener. This episode was kind of rushed into production, and they had a story and they didn't really know what the running time of it was going to be. They didn't know if it was going to be 60 minutes, 90 minutes or 2 hours. They came up with a treatment for 60 minutes and then they basically had to rush a treatment in for 30 minutes and they basically just mashed them together. So what you had is you had the Farpoint element and then you had the Q element. The Farpoint element was written by DC Fontana, the Q stuff by Gene Roddenberry, and they basically just slapped it together, and that's kind of how it feels. Two components that have just been mashed together. It's something that we got a lot with early TNG, so this isn't even the last time this kind of mashy, kind of messy story thing happens, and yeah, it's really obvious when you're watching it. Wasn't particularly a massive fan of the villains. They weren't really villains, but the antagonists of this week's episode, Zorn, Groppler Zorn, and the Bandy, never really bought them as legitimate threats. I guess they weren't really presented as real threats, but the thing for me is I never really got how they were able to capture this creature and confine it and kind of make it shift into this awesome structure. I never really bought it, and we never saw him again, so I guess it doesn't really matter anyway. Now, of course, I have to talk about awkward first episode performances, and awkward performances is something that we're going to talk about a lot with TNG's first season, because there's a lot of it. Standouts here, I mean, almost every single actor had a bit of an interesting first couple of episodes as they were kind of warming into their role, and I guess if we're to kind of go a little bit easy on them, every single TV show really has this kind of feeling out process of the performers kind of understanding their characters, and also the writers understanding the characters that they're writing. So Encounter at Farpoint isn't a traditional pilot in the sense that it was a proof of concept that they filmed to present to the studio to them, to have the studio kind of go, well, this is fine, you can make more of these. TNG's first season was already pre-ordered. They'd already pre-ordered the entire first run, so it wasn't like the actors were like, well, I've got to get this right, otherwise this isn't going to happen. They knew that they already had this first season. You know, maybe it was just the expectation bearing down and causing a little bit of pressure that then presented itself as jitters and nervousness. But some of the, performances here, now we have Deanna Troi, whose Betazoid abilities was toned down in subsequent episodes. I think here she's presented as a full empath, and yeah, it's a lot of kind of overacting. It's not terrible, it's just not great, and sometimes it's a bit corny and a bit cheesy. We also had the really weird Troy and Riker reunion scene, which was pretty much lifted straight out of Star Trek Phase 2 / the motion picture with Deckard and Ilia. It's pretty much carbon copy of that whole romance, but when Riker and Troy see each other for the first time, we get that really awkward kind of telepathic conversation, and Picard stuck in the middle, and it's just cheese, pure cheese. The one performance in Encounter that does stand out for me as being particularly wooden and very, very strange considering what we knew he would go on to become, Jean-Luc Picard. Now, I was praising him earlier, and I like the differentiation of captain styles and things like that, and that's cool, but he's so weird in this episode. Like, the things that he does, the way he treats Riker is really, really strange. He hates the red alert klaxon. It's obviously in the writing, and I guess it was probably, in the screenplay that, I don't know, Jean-Luc had to be very gruff and strict. I'm glad they kind of got away from that whole side of the character as the show progressed and he softened. Can't imagine anyone really loving this character in the long run. So yeah, Jean-Luc kind of really stood out as being a really strange character in this episode for me. Encounter at Farpoint largely succeeds in its establishment of a new universe, a new era, new ship, new crew. It's not perfect, but it does just what it needs to do. Gets the crew off on this brand new adventure. I have a brand new review scale. It's not particularly exciting. It's an F to A+, plus grade. I'm sorry, I couldn't come up with anything more exciting, but it's going to hopefully help kind of better differentiate the quality of episodes. So to start us off, I am giving Encounter at Farpoint a B-. What did you think of Encounter at Farpoint, Star Trek Next Generation's first episode? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't done so already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel for more Star Trek-y content goodness coming at you very soon. Until the next video, stay safe and live long and prosper. Ouch!